heard of this movie until I saw Fury. I was looking at David Ayer's other work. I know he did End of Watch and Training Day, two of the best cop movies ever made, in my opinion. And I saw this. I was like, well, I'll give this a chance. And I was excited to watch it because it's David Ayer. He brought us Training Day, End of Watch. I personally like SWAT, Harsh Times, and Fury. Then I looked at who wrote the movie. And I was like, not the guy that wrote this atrocity and then this atrocity. Neither of those movies should be talked about, especially Die Hard 5. Yep, Skip Woods wrote this movie, and I was like, yeah, don't know how I feel about this movie now. Sabotage. So Sabotage is a movie brought to us by director David Ayer, who directed Training Day, End of Watch, and Fury. He also wrote and directed End of Watch and Fury, so just wanted to throw that in there. He wrote both movies. Yeah, he directed this movie, but he didn't write it, and this movie stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Joe Manganiello, Sam Worthington, Terrence Howard, and a bunch of other people that nobody gives a shit about. In Sabotage, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the head of a DEA task force who thinks they're like elite and badass, and quite frankly, I don't think they're that cool. This task force is going to take down a Guatemalan drug cartel safe house in Atlanta. They rob it and they see tons of money. They steal $10 million in cash, but nobody knows who stole it. So the team is fired, they're disbanded, they're suspended, they're being investigated by the FBI while every member from the team is being picked off one by one. So now Schwarzenegger has to get his team back together to find out which one of the team members took the money or where the money went and who is committing these murders against the team. And like I said, I never heard of this movie until I saw Fury, and I look forward to watching this movie because it was directed by David Ayer, but it was written by Skip Woods, who brought us A Good Day to Die Hard, Hitman, and X-Men Origins Wolverine, and we all know how those movies turned out. Especially Die Hard 5, which gets no credit for anything in life. When you have this dude writing a movie, nothing is gonna make sense. All this random bullshit is gonna get shoehorned in, and it's all going to be convoluted and try and tie it back to everything at the beginning of the movie. And it just doesn't work when this guy writes a movie, and it really doesn't work in this movie. By nothing making sense, I mean this. Schwarzenegger and his team bust a drug cartel safe house, they steal $10 million, but then they blow up the rest of the money. Here's the thing. How the fuck in any part of this world does the FBI know that $10 million got stolen from this drug cartel safe house if Arnold Schwarzenegger and his team blew up all the rest of the money? It's illogical bullshit. I watched that part of the movie and I was like, well, they stole $10 million, but it's 30 minutes into the movie. I didn't pick up on it now, but I'm picking up on it now. How did the FBI manage to know that there was a lot more money there? Truth is, trying to insult your common sense. If you didn't pick up on it at the beginning of the movie, you're definitely going to pick up on it like 30 minutes later. And then at the end of the movie, there are two plot twists. Two plot twists there. One that's kind of like, it's kind of stupid, but I can live with it. The other involves Schwarzenegger's character, and you're like, where'd that come from? It's almost like they changed the ending at the last minute, which I think they did. I think I read on the trivia that David Ayer filmed two different alternate endings where Arnold Schwarzenegger's character was the villain. Test audiences didn't like that, so Skip Woods is like, hey, David Ayer, why don't we do this, and some other illogical bullshit and have Schwarzenegger do this stupid bullshit? David Ayer was probably like, hey, it's a movie that's gonna suck because you're writing it, but go for it. I got Fury coming out. Fury's gonna be better than this piece of shit. Like, they rewrote it and they just went with it. They didn't even put any thought into what was written down on paper. They're like, yep, all this illogical bullshit makes sense when it really doesn't make sense, so we're gonna roll with it. It blew my mind. I got to the end, I was like, that goes against Arnold Schwarzenegger's character totally in this movie. Speaking of the characters in this movie, they're all assholes. They're unlikable. Schwarzenegger's character, yeah, I can sympathize with him until the end of the movie, where he reveals his crazy plot twist. The cop that ends up investigating the team and the one that Schwarzenegger ends up working with to find out who's behind the murders and who stole the $10 million in cash, yeah, I like her too. Everybody else in the movie is just dumb. Sam Worthington he's a dumb character in this movie. His wife, I don't know who that was, but she was the chick in World War Z who played Brad Pitt's wife. Joe Manganiello, maybe he was somewhat likable. I mean, you know, but he was still an asshole. Terrence Howard was an asshole. Like, there's literally this one scene, this is not a spoiler, I swear to God, there's literally this one scene where Joe Manganiello is tattooing a tattoo on one of the other teammates who gets killed like really early in the movie, he's tattooing a tattoo on his back, and everybody's like, hey, you got a dick on your back. It's like, wow, you're a bunch of assholes. Then two other people come in and they're like, hey, he's got a dick on his back. You drawing a dick on his back? That's a dick, man. That is a dick. That is a 10-foot long dick. Have somebody lick that. Seriously. Have sex, have the girl lick that tattoo. You will love it. Schwarzenegger comes in and he's like, is that a dick? It's like, oh no, not you two. But that was the only stupid line he had in the movie. And Schwarzenegger, he's a one-line man. He only says one-liners in this movie. So all his one-liners in this movie contain these 4 words. Shut the fuck up! I never sworn before in movies! Put the cookie down! I swear to you, I am the Turbo Man! You one ugly motherfucker, shut the fuck up, sit down! Know how the dinosaurs died out? The Ice Age! Big Bonnie Ross. The only line I want to say in this movie is shut the fuck up! Seriously! That's pretty much it. Now, is it just me, or is this movie, I don't want to say extremely violent, but does this movie glorify violence? This movie definitely looks like it glorifies violence. Now, I have no problem watching violent movies. I usually watch violent movies. I'm not going to become a violent person because I watch violent movies, not going to put sick thoughts in my head. I mean, and that's pretty much all that's out there. It's pretty much all violent movies, or, you know, the occasional drama with some violence, and then there's like the occasional drama that's slow moving, and then there's the occasional kids movie. I have to agree, most of the movies nowadays have violence in them, and that's fine. If the movie needs violence, the movie needs violence. Now this movie, yeah, probably a movie that should be violent, but probably on the level of Training Day or End of Watch. The type of violence this movie shouldn't have is the type of violence where somebody is shot with nails in his arm, is on the ceiling, nailed to the ceiling, there's a pool of blood like 30 feet on the floor, this guy that's nailed to the ceiling has his stomach ripped open, blood's dripping from his stomach, and all his intestines are spilling onto the floor. Why do you need that in a cop movie? You don't need that in a cop movie. I mean, saying the whole thing with the intestines is probably pretty much shitting on the violence of Machete, but Machete's not a movie that's supposed to be taken seriously. That scene where he grabs the guy's intestines and uses them as a rope, it was disgusting. Didn't throw up over it, though. I thought it was kind of funny because, you know, it's meant for laughs. They put that in there for laughs. But when you have enormous amounts of blood splats, and more big blood splats with brain matter going all over the place, and a guy nailed to the ceiling with his intestines hanging out, and then another guy who is slashed in the neck, which is fine, good amount of blood there, but then is found in a refrigerator in a pool of blood, there's definitely no way a cop movie should have that. End of Watch, yeah, sure, it had the occasional disturbing image. I mean, that scene where Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena go into the house and they find all the severed limbs, yeah, that was disturbing as all hell, and Jake Gyllenhaal threw up in that scene. I got a little queasy in that scene, and I watch all that kind of shit. I mean, not limbs getting taken off, but you know, all that like cop movie stuff. But in this movie, it's too over the top. It's gratuitous, it's grotesque, it glorifies violence. There's a shootout in the end of this movie. There's probably like at least like 12 civilians killed and nobody gives a shit. And they're killed in like the most gruesome ways. Like a tow truck guy like hits a car and he like hits his head against like a steering wheel, and then like the dude that Schwarzenegger's chasing at the end, like his car runs into the flatbed of the tow truck and he gets decapitated. I'm like, no, please, tone it down. You don't need to show that shit just to prove that this is going to be a good movie because you're showing that shit. This movie isn't good because you're showing that shit. So stop glorifying violence. I feel like this is a movie where Skip Woods wrote and he was like, you know what? How do I make this even more brutal? Let's have all these grotesque crime scenes and we'll have a good movie. That's the thing I don't like about Skip Woods. None of his stories make any sense, and he makes all his violence in his movies a lot more grotesque and brutal than it should be. And there's literally a scene, spoiler alert, yeah, Schwarzenegger's family got killed before the beginning of the movie. There's literally a scene where Sam Worthington is talking to the investigating cop about Schwarzenegger and why he's like kind of a jerk sometimes. It's like, yeah, his family got kidnapped by a cartel. They offered him ransom money. He refused. So, you know what they did? Yeah, they mutilated them. They chopped up their limbs. They sent pieces of them home to him in the mail. At that point, I was like, did we really need to know that? I didn't want to know that. You could have just said, well, the cartel shot them. That would have worked better. You don't have to go out of your way for a really grotesque description of how Schwarzenegger's family got killed. You don't have to say, oh yeah, they got chopped up and sent to him in the mail. If the guy nailed to the ceiling with his intestines hanging out and the guy in the refrigerator in a pool of blood didn't cross the line, that description definitely crossed the line. This is going to be a knock on David Ayer, because the CGI blood, come on, that's all you got. Looked a lot more real in End of Watch and Training Day. I guess if there is one positive to take away from the movie, it's the performance that Arnold Schwarzenegger gives. It's a darker performance for Schwarzenegger. It's one of his better post-political performances. Coming from me, I don't think Schwarzenegger's that good of an actor. He's a good big guy that you need in like one of those like crazy action movies like The Expendables or Predator, except The Expendables needs to end. But in no way is he gonna win an Oscar. He's not that good, but he was good in this movie. I thought he did a very good job in this movie. I also thought his character was the only likable character. He was the only one you could relate to, so everybody else sucked. Despite Arnold Schwarzenegger putting up one of his best post-political performances since he hasn't been in office as the governor of California, it's a darker, grittier performance for Schwarzenegger. I like that, but despite that, the movie's story is definitely very messy. Nothing makes sense. It's all convoluted, tries to reconnect somehow to the beginning and to all the characters that are in this movie. Other than Schwarzenegger's character and that cop that's investigating the task force team, nobody is likable in this movie. You really don't want to sympathize with any of them. And the violence in this movie is too over the top. It's grotesque, disturbing, way too descriptive and showing too much. It's quite disturbing. When it's a movie that, yeah, needs violence and some blood splats here and there, but not an insane amount of, like, brain matter and intestines hanging out of people and somebody in a refrigerator that's dead. Yeah, you don't need that shit, and the plot twists at the end of this movie do not make sense at all. There's a lot of weak character development, too, which I didn't really talk about, but that's kind of the whole gist when you're watching a Skip Woods movie. Sabotage, yeah, it's definitely a movie I'd say if you want to watch it, yeah, go ahead. Just watch it once, but even if you do watch it once, you'll probably be so bored you'll fall asleep within 5 minutes. It's a movie that I for sure thought was going to be one of David Ayer's best, but it was just a miss for him. I don't know why I thought that, though. It is the guy who wrote Die Hard 5, and Die Hard 5, complete bullshit, killed the Die Hard franchise, so yeah. Don't know why I expected that. So Sabotage, if you have heard of it, and if you haven't, good, I'm glad I could spare you the pain. If you have you seen Sabotage? If you have seen Sabotage, did you like it? Did you hate it? I want to know what you think, so leave me some feedback by dropping me a comment in the comments section below. And for more of my reviews, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.